Millions of people from around the world have seen the famed docudrama Apollo 13 at least once in their lives since its release in theaters in 1995. But what people don't pause and think about are the differences between Ron Howard's movie, which was based on Jim Lovell's Lost Moon, and the actual mission NASA conducted on April 11, 1970. There are no radical differences between the movie and the real mission, but there are at least a few small technical, factual, or just plain overlooked errors that do their job to distinguish fact from fiction. Starting with the real-life mission, or the fact, Apollo 13 started off just as planned, with no unpredicted events happening early on except for a change in the crew. Instead of James A. Lovell being commander, Ken Mattingly as command module pilot, and Fred W. Hayes the lunar module pilot, the crew consisted of James A. Lovell, John L. Swigert, and Fred Hayes. Mattingly was actually grounded by the flight surgeon because he came into contact with German measles. Other than that, launch went as expected, and the movie explains this accurately, but everything was thrown into question at 55 hours, 55 minutes into the mission, 9 minutes after a live TV broadcast to the world saying how they lived in space. Oxygen tank number 2 exploded, causing the first tank to fail. The movie accurately portrays the explosion, but it fails to detail why the explosion happened in the first place. It was confirmed that oxygen tank number 2 was damaged during modification and could only reach 92% capacity after that. There was also the problem of liquid oxygen in the tank, causing the tank to become compromised anyway. Due to an oversight in fixing the tank, the internal heating elements of it became severely damaged. Because of explosion on one faulty oxygen tank, the entire Apollo 13 mission was compromised. The worst problem the explosion caused was the rapid expulsion of oxygen into space. The pressure for oxygen tank 1 plummeted towards only 200 pounds per square inch, and of course the pressure for oxygen tank number 2 constantly read 0. And as if the threat of choking because of no oxygen wasn't enough, if the pressure continued to plummet, the last fuel cell would die. With only 2,181 ampere-hours in the lunar module batteries, power conservation was also a major concern. And to add even more to the problems, Mission Control predicted that the crew would run out of water approximately about 5 hours before re-entry, or at about 151 hours. Keep in mind, this was all occurring at 322,000 kilometers from Earth. To save as much power as possible, the crew had to turn off literally every non-critical system in the module. Basically, everything but communication systems was shut down, and Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert would drift blindly around the moon and hopefully back to Earth. But another problem arose: carbon dioxide levels. Even though there were enough lithium hydroxide canisters to remove all carbon dioxide from the spacecraft, they could not fit into the LM's environmental system.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
This just isn't a contingency we can remotely look at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that.
Picture trying to put a large square-shaped object into a smaller cylinder. If Mission Control couldn't give the crew a plan fast, Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert would die of asphyxiation very quickly. Fortunately, someone at Mission Control came up with a mailbox rig, which involved the use of plastic bags, cardboard, and tape to attach the command module canisters to the LM system. However, Ken Mattingly himself explained that what happened in the movie concerning the filters is not entirely correct. When asked about making a new filter on the spot, he said that the real world is better than that, and explained that a similar situation happened during Apollo 8. NASA had in fact already run a simulation in which a screw for the latter mission's cabin fan was loose, so they had a rough idea of how to handle the real problem during Apollo 13. Of course, though, the one Apollo 13 was a lot more drastic. Despite these movie magic differences, one final thing that Ken Mattingly had to clarify was the simulations he ran in the movie. In real life, he would not have done them entirely from scratch to give Lovell and crew a way to start the trip home. Instead, all Mattingly did during that fateful week in April 1970 was verify procedures that Mission Control had already outlined. After the power, oxygen, and water conservation problems were successfully tackled, it seemed that Lovell, Swigert, and Hayes would get home safely. All they had to do was endure the cold temperature in the cabin. After the pressure decreased and power systems were shut down, the cabin cooled to a cool 38 degrees Fahrenheit, and there was water everywhere. When the crew left the LM Aquarius and descended to the Pacific Ocean, Lovell recalled that it rained in the CM. Unfortunately, the CM was recovered, but the LM Aquarius burned up in the atmosphere upon re-entry. Overall, NASA and the world deemed Apollo 13 to be a successful failure. What they meant by this was that while the crew never landed on the moon, they and Mission Control figured out how to deal with one of the worst seemingly imminent disasters the world had ever seen with cool, calculating calmness. Apollo 13 the movie, even when its errors due to dramatization, excellently revives the suspense billions of people felt 44 years ago. It has become not just an icon in the thriller genre, but has also become one of the greatest docudramas in film history.